Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I've decided to do a collection of all my palettes to share with you guys. I've divided it into lower end and higher end, so hopefully that makes it easier for you guys to navigate through the video. I'm very excited to share this with you, and without further ado, let's get into the video. The first one is a mini eyeshadow palette from Icing. This is going to create more of a blue smoky eye. I really enjoy this shade right here, and it is a lower end product. So I'll start with the lower end and go into higher end. So this is a lower end product. It's from Icing, which is like a Claire's or an Ardene's. Next up I have a palette from e.l.f. It's their baked round eyeshadows. And right here you can see it's mostly shimmery shadows and they're pigmented and a good starter for some shimmery eyeshadows. Next up is by Maybelline New York, and this is the Nudes palette. I remember this is one of my first palettes I ever owned. It's kind of a smaller one, but it's just basically all the essential nudes that you need to create very basic looks or more complex if you're a higher up artist. I recommend this a lot, especially for beginners. I think it's very user friendly, and yeah. Next up is another palette from Icing. This is the Au Naturel palette. I actually used this palette in my summer tutorial last year. I find that this is a really good palette for a starter. It has lots of neutral shades in it as well as shimmers, and it has lots to choose from, so I really recommend this palette, and it's very affordable. And the last palette is one that I showed in my last video, and that was a full face at drugstore. It's the Au Naturel Wet n Wild palette in Bare Necessities. And this is just a beautiful palette, as I was saying in my last video, very pigmented. The shades all work very well and blend together and no mudding is created. If you want to see a look with that palette, check out my last video, but I really recommend this, and it was very affordable and actually 50% off. So check this palette out. Next, into the higher end brands. My first love would be the Too Faced Chocolate Bar palette. I really recommend this product to people that are just starting to get into higher end makeup. I think this palette's very user friendly, and I've almost used every single shadow in this palette. I think you're able to create a lot of neutral, basic looks with this palette, and not as dramatic, but there is a few shades, such as like the purples on this side of the palette, that you are able to create more dramatic look with it if you like, but I think this palette is overall a great palette. Next up is another Too Faced palette. This is actually the Christmas in New York, the Chocolate Shop palette, which was the 2016 palette at Christmas. If you see here, it has a highlight, bronzer, and blush, and then full shadows over here. I really enjoyed this palette. I feel these shadows are not as pigmented as the other chocolate bar palette I mentioned before, but I think it has a good selection as well as some pops of color in it. The bottom row very much. I think it's very pretty, and you're able to create a lot of looks with this palette, especially since it has so many shades in it. And this row I like a lot. I like that they added in this as a bonus, because I think that this is a very good palette that you could be able to travel with, and it's all in one. So I know that Morphe isn't really like a high-end brand because their prices are very good, but I think that their shadows are high quality, so I've decided to incorporate them into the high-end brand part of my video. So my first Morphe palette would be the 35F. It is the old packaging with the plastic casing, and this is the Fall into Frost palette. It has tons of shimmers, but also a row of mattes. I love this palette. I think the shimmers are absolutely pigmented and gorgeous, and definitely a fall palette. I recommend this palette to a lot of people, and I think you can create a lot of looks with it, even though it's filled with shimmers. Next is the 35K from Morphe. Again, same packaging. This is the necessities you need to create a smoky eye. I love this palette. I use it daily. I use this shadow right here, as you can see, for my brow sometimes. I think this palette has tons of choices for smokies, blue smokies, brown smokies, burgundy smokies. I think it's overall a great palette and very versatile. The next palette is my one true love and something I've been waiting for a very long time, and I was so lucky to get my hands on one. And this is the Jaclyn Hill palette with Morphe. This is her old packaging of the palette, so it has the Morphe Jaclyn Hill and her initials all over the back and then the front, and you can see I've kind of mudded it up a bit because it is not the new packaging. That's okay. So inside it says this palette is dedicated to my loving subscribers with her signature, and then here are all the wonderful shadows. This palette is truly a beautiful palette. I'm very proud of Jaclyn as she's one of my role models that I aspire to be like. Her shadows are extremely pigmented, more pigmented than my other Morphe palettes, and I think this is a very versatile palette as well. So many looks you can create: colorful, neutral, smoky eye, anything under the sun you want to do with this palette is possible. So congratulations to Jaclyn. Again, I know this is a little bit ago that she created this palette, but I think it's overall an amazing palette and I love it so much and use it almost every single day. For the last part of my video, I decided to add in like palettes that I own that aren't eyeshadows, either face products or around that area. So the first one I thought I'd bring in is this mini Tarte Pro Glow to Go. I recently just picked this up for Christmas. It has 2 highlighters and a bronzer. It has Gleam, Burst, and Chisel, and I think these highlights are super pigmented. I've never tried highlights from Tarte before. This is also amazing for travel. I think the packaging is extremely adorable, and the bronzer is a very nice warm shade on the face. I think it's very user-friendly, and it's also a very good thing to travel with again. Another palette that I love to death is the Jaclyn Hill and Becca collaboration. So this is her bronzer, blush, and highlighter palette. I think the packaging is absolutely adorable. The gold and white is beautiful, and the mirror is stunning. So down at the bottom, we have Prosecco Pop and Champagne Pop, as well as Rosé Spritz, Amaretto, and Pamplemousse. These are beautiful blushes, and I love the bronzer, and obviously the highlights are amazing because they are Becca and Jaclyn Hill, and I've always loved Champagne Pop. I really recommend, well, I can't really recommend this palette because it was limited edition, but if you did get your hands on it, I know how happy you are to have it. It's truly an amazing palette. So thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoy the collective palettes that I've collected over the course of time with being in makeup. I really love my collection and I hope to expand it very soon. I recommend any of the palettes that I have in here. I wouldn't have them if I didn't love them, but definitely check out some of the palettes that I've recommended and see if they can benefit you. So thank you for watching and have a great day.